Hi, welcome to Fireflow. So, nice dynamic class for you today. A block would be helpful and perhaps a couple of cushions. Yeah, grab hold of those if you've got them. As always, feel free to take whatever variations feel good for you today. Listen into your body. There'll be lots of different options available for you to take. At the end, I will offer the opportunity of an inversion, as I often do at the end of class. I won't be demonstrating all the inversions due to my pregnancy, but please feel free to take anything that feels good. So shoulder stands, plow, headstand, whatever it is that you like to add into your practice. And I will start to put out some videos for those as well that explain how to get into some of those inversions. So coming to start today in a kneeling position. So it may be that you like to have something, a cushion in between thighs and calves, so feel free to do so. And obviously if kneeling isn't comfortable, then feel free to take a cross-legged position instead. So finding yourself into your kneeling position, if that's good, allowing your eyes to close and bringing the hands to wherever feels comfortable today. So maybe hands down on the lap or palms up, depending on what you feel you need for today's practice. And then taking a moment to observe what you're coming to this practice with this morning or this afternoon, wherever you're at, wherever you're doing it. What's the day been like? How are you feeling? What are you carrying in your body physically? How does that feel? And what are you carrying mentally, emotionally? Just kind of taking note of what's going on in your body. How you're feeling today. Sometimes when life is super busy, we can race through the days without taking a moment to observe what's going on for us, to notice. So this is an opportunity to come inwards a little bit, to observe the body, the mind. And perhaps as you do that, you begin to notice your breath. What's that like today? Is it the first time that you've noticed your breath today? That you've paid attention to it? Taking a few moments to observe its passage in and out of your body. How it feels to inhale and exhale. No need for it to be a specific way right now. If you're feeling to take an ujjayi breath, then of course feel free to do so. But allowing yourself to experience your body, your breath, your mind, just as they are right now. Maybe as you give yourself this space, you create a little bit more space in your body for the breath to fill up a bit deeper, to come a bit deeper into your body. Maybe you invite that breath into the lower ribs, noticing them expanding to the sides as you inhale, to the back. Maybe there's space for your exhales to be a little longer. Taking one more breath at the beginning of class. Inhaling, filling your body in whatever way feels good for you. And exhaling to release. You can keep the eyes closed here if you wish. Bringing the arms up to a kind of cactus position, so opening the arms, palms facing forward, bent at the elbows. Inhaling into that space you've created across the chest, broadening through the chest as you inhale. Maybe on your next inhale, you draw the shoulder blades close together, so maybe the arms move a bit further backwards, expanding that space in the chest even further. Maybe the gaze comes up. And then arms coming back down, allowing your eyes to open, taking a few rolls through the shoulders if that feels good, maybe a few circles through the wrists. So waking up the body, getting it ready for this flow, for this fiery practice today. And then slowly making your way onto all fours when you're ready. So once you've found your all fours position, hands under shoulders, knees under hips, then bringing your hands one handprint forward of where they are, and the knees about the same wider. So the knees are not quite coming to the edge of the mat, they're just a little wider than hips distance. Tucking the toes underneath. And then taking a rock backwards. So opening up the soles of the feet here, taking a little stretch. You can allow your head to sink down, you can keep it lifted. So you're in control of how much stretch the back of your feet get. And then inhaling, rolling forward. So we'll come through this a couple of times, taking these little stretches, these openings into the back of the feet. So opening up the soles of the feet, opening up the fascia, the connective tissue that runs up from the soles of the feet, the back of the legs, and into the spine. Or into the back, should I say. And rocking through at your own pace, feeling into the tightness that you may or may not have in the back of the feet. Notice what it feels like. Coming through one more time, wherever you are. And then on your next inhale, finding your way back to center and bringing hands and knees back to their normal position in all fours. Untucking the toes and maybe taking a few hip circles, a couple of times one way, a couple of times the other way. So getting a little bit of movement into the hips. So we'll be kind of working a little bit on opening the hips today. So this is a nice way to get everything opened up. And then finding a way back to center, tucking your toes under and lifting up into downward facing dog. So for this first downward facing dog, taking a pedal with the feet. So you can start with whatever foot feels good. So you're exhaling to bring one of your heels down to the ground, coming up onto the toes of the other. And then as you inhale, you're coming up onto both toes and then lowering the other heel. So working through this really nice and slowly. Sometimes when we pedal the feet, it can be tempting to kind of rush it and move really fast from side to side, seeing if you can mindfully come into this opening of the back of the legs. And checking in that your head and neck are relaxed. Make sure Mr. Neck's not doing all the work today, letting him have a day off. And then when you're ready, finding a way back to center. As you inhale, rolling forward into plank, head comes forward last. And then knees lower down towards the ground, barely touching, and then pressing back into downward facing dog. So kind of almost like a wave. So let's come through that a few times, inhaling to come forward, and then exhaling as you wave back. Inhaling forward, reaching out through the crown of the head when you get there, and then exhaling back. One more time, inhaling forward, and exhaling back. On your next inhale, lifting up the right leg into one-legged dog, coming up onto the left toes, and then stepping the right foot forward to outside of the right hand. So you may want to use your hand to help you get there. Once you get there, allowing the hips to sink down. So we're using this as a little way to warm up the hips. And then stepping back into downward facing dog. Inhaling, left leg rises up, coming up onto the right toes. And stepping left leg outside of left hand and allowing the left hip to sink and the right hip to sink. Back into downward facing dog. So we'll come through this one more time on each side at a pace that feels good for you. So inhaling, right leg comes up onto the left toes, lunging forward. Right foot outside of right hand, sinking the hips. Back to downward facing dog. Inhaling, left leg rises. Outside of left hand, sinking the hips. So this is just a nice simple movement to get the synovial fluid in the hips moving, get the hips moving. Back to downward facing dog. On your next inhale, either walking the feet or jumping the feet forward, floating the feet to coming both feet outside of the hands. So you'll want to look forward for this if you're taking your float, pressing through the hands, engaging through the pelvic floor and Mula Bandha, and then feet come forward into your squat position. So toes are slightly out, heels are slightly in. As you inhale, bringing the hands to prayer and rising up to stand. Opening up the arms into your cactus. Option to take a lion's breath here. And then sinking down, coming into a kind of narrow goddess pose. So taking care not to come too low that the knees don't go over the toes. Opening up the chest, and maybe you take some little sort of bounces here, some pulses. Seeing if you can bring the weight back into the heels. And then hands to prayer, we're coming back down into that squat. Inhale, rising up, we'll do that once more. Option to open the arms, cactus, lion's breath. And then taking those little pulses in your narrow goddess pose, bringing the weight back towards the heels. And then straightening up the legs, bringing the feet so that they're at the edges of the mat and parallel, hands to prayer, inhaling, opening the chest, exhaling, forward fold into a ragdoll, one hand inside each elbow, And taking a moment here, opening up the back of the legs. You can have a little sway in your ragdoll if that feels good. And of course you can bend the knees here if that feels good. When you're ready, on your next exhale, bringing the hands down towards the ground. And we're going to come back into downward facing dog. You might, before you step back, want to make sure you've got a block handy just at the front of your mat if it's out of reach. Taking a breath in, downward facing dog. On your next inhale, right leg rises up into one-legged dog, up onto the left toes, and then stepping the right foot outside of the right hand as we did before. So if you've got a block here, you might want to bring it underneath your left hand at this point. If you haven't got a block, it's totally possible to do this without. It's just a little bit more tricky. So option here, if you'd like to give this a go, on your next inhale, you're going to lift the right hand from the ground. You can have it on your leg if you want, or up by your head. You're going to lift the left foot, bring it through without the hips touching the ground, and reach the left foot out in front, pressing through with the heel, flexing the foot. And then exhale, coming back through. Or do that one more time. So if you need to bring hands down at any point, of course you can, but just seeing if you can work with your core here. So engaging through Mula Bandha, through the core, inhaling, left foot comes forward, reaching out, flexing through the foot, and then exhaling back. Let's go one more time actually, why not? Inhaling, reaching forward, and exhaling back. Bringing your hand back down to the ground, moving the block, left hand down as well. And from here, seeing if you can step straight back into your one-legged dog. So right foot lifts up off the floor. And then bending the knee, opening the hip so that the knee points towards the ceiling. Maybe your gaze comes under your right arm. And then taking some circles with your hip here. Coming back into your one-legged dog, gaze comes to the back of the mat. And then foot down when you're ready. Rolling forward into plank pose, lowering the knees down, and coming in to take a cat and cow. So whenever you're ready, inhaling, tailbone lifts, and gaze lifts. Exhaling, tucking, rounding as the gaze comes to the back of the mat. Inhaling, coming through once more, going at your own pace here, so just providing a little bit of release through the spine. And then inhale back to center. So we'll come through and do all of that on the other side, having a block ready. Tucking the toes, coming into downward facing dog. On your next inhale, you've guessed it, the left foot is lifting up into your one-legged dog and then stepping forward outside of your left hand. So finding your block underneath your right hand if you've got it. If you haven't, then try and give it a go without, why not? And an option here to bring the left hand to the thigh or up by the side of the head. As you inhale, you're bringing, that right foot forward. You might have a bit of a problem like me if you're by a door. And back. I'm going to take a little move over so I don't have a collision. And then we'll come through again. So, inhale, coming through. And exhale back. And once more. Inhale, coming through. And exhale back. And when you're ready, bringing the hands down, moving the block. We're going to come straight back into our one-legged dog. And opening up the hip, knee to the sky. When you're ready, gaze underneath the left arm. Taking those circles with the hips. And then bringing the foot back down and rolling forward into your plank. Lowering the knees, we'll take another couple of cat-cows. Inhaling, lifting, opening and expanding. And exhaling, tuck and round. Once more, inhale, open, expanding and lifting. And exhaling to tuck and round. Inhale, finding your way back to center. We're going to come into pigeon pose, taking a few more poses to open up the hips. Drawing the right knee forward to behind the right hand or slightly to the outside of it. And then allow the foot to come across slightly to the middle. Walking your left foot backwards and the left leg backwards. Checking that you're still parallel with the mat. And then bringing the hands one handprint forward here. If that feels good there, you can stay where you are. You might want to use your block to pop it underneath that right hip. It stops the right hip tipping over. It helps keeps the hip level, which is really helpful here. And then coming forward. So if you've got cushions, I've just got a little blanket. You might want to sort of have that here or something underneath the head. You can come down either onto elbows or all the way down to the ground. So your choice here if you want to come down all the way. And seeing wherever you are, if you can really breathe into that hip. Maybe it feels very open today. Maybe this feels quite relaxing. If it feels very tight, then feel free to stay a little bit higher up. And using that block to check that you're not rolling over too much onto the right side, that you're still getting that openness through the hips. So if you feel like you might be rolling over, just having a little play around with that block to support you. Taking a couple more breaths here. Seeing if you can create a little bit more space in that right hip. If it is feeling tight, can you send your breath down there? Can you find any more space for it to release? When you're ready, if you have come down to either elbows or all of the way, bringing the hands underneath the shoulders to come up. We'll just come up part way to here. And then option from here to take a bend through that back knee. And then reach back and hold on to it with the left hand. So you can hold on to the inside of the foot or the outside of the foot, whatever feels most comfortable. And then you're getting a little bit of openness through the front of the leg and through the chest. If this doesn't feel good for your back in any way, then staying with pigeon for a little bit longer instead. If king pigeon or mermaid's in your practice, feel free to take it, but only if it's something that feels good for your spine. Both of those are quite a big back bend, so being really mindful with those. And then releasing the foot, coming back to center. Moving any props that you've got out of the way towards the front of the mat. And then walking in that back foot before you draw the right knee back to center. And you can take a couple of hip circles or a couple of rocks from side to side before we come onto the other side, if that feels good. And then when you're ready, we'll draw the left knee up behind the left wrist or slightly to the outside. The left foot comes a little bit to center as you begin to walk the right leg back. And then checking that your right leg's parallel with the mat. Sometimes it likes to roll over to the outside or inside a little bit, so just checking in on that one. And then same as before, bringing the hands one handprint forward here. You can use your block underneath the left hip, so to keep the hips level and steady. So that's a really nice little trick to make sure that you're in the pose in a way that will feel good for your body. And then you can begin to come down if you feel like you want that little bit more, that little bit of extra stretch. You can shuffle your foot around so it ends up in a place that feels comfortable, it's not digging in. So maybe you come all the way down, maybe you stay on elbows. You can use cushions, blocks to support yourself here. So try and find a place that your body can be in stillness for a few breaths. And if you are feeling tightness here, maybe with each exhale, you can visualize an opening up, a bit of space being created in that left hip. Taking a couple more breaths, breathing into any areas of tension, seeing if you can let them go. What happens if you allow your body to relax, to release? On your next inhale, if you come down, bringing the hands in underneath, just slightly forward of the shoulders, and then option to take that opening through the leg by bending the knees. So if that didn't feel comfortable and the knees are on the back, staying where you are. Otherwise, bending through the knee, you can reach back and grab the inside of the foot. So you're getting a little bit of openness through the chest here, as well as opening up the hip flexors, the front of the hip. And being really mindful if this doesn't feel good, coming out of it straight away. And again, if you've got a deeper version of this pose already in your practice and you feel really confident with that, then please feel free to take it. You can absolutely use blocks here underneath that front hand if you need to get a little bit of extra height. So for me, this is something I feel in some ways more through my shoulder than I do actually through the leg. But for you, it might feel different. It might be that you're feeling that more through the front of the leg, through the hip. And then releasing the foot when you're ready, bringing the hands back to center, moving any blocks or props out of the way, and then walking in that back foot, drawing the left leg back to center, taking a couple of circles through the hips. And maybe you want to take a downward facing dog just to kind of open everything up for one last breath. And then rolling forwards, bringing the knees down when you're ready, feet out to the side, coming to sit down on the mat. And from here, we'll bring the soles of the feet together, knees apart. So if you've got your cushions, you might want to pop them underneath the knees so you've got a little bit of extra support. So, cushions, blankets, blocks. This is a nice way to support the body. So even if you haven't got a matching set, you can still make do. And then seeing from here if you can allow the knees to open and relax, if there can be a letting go of any holding that might be going on in the hip flexors at the front. And maybe closing the eyes here, allowing you to feel into what's going on in your body. Does this feel like a nice open pose for you today? Are you feeling a bit tight? You can take a massage down the arches of the foot if you wish. Or perhaps you'd like to take a forward fold in this pose. So if you're feeling very open in this pose already, then if you're taking the fold, leading with your chest and coming forward. Otherwise, staying where you are, tall and open through the spine, open through the chest. Taking a couple more breaths here, finding a little bit of openness in your body. If you've taken that forward fold, on your inhale, walking your hands back up and then hands underneath the knees wherever you are to bring them together. We're going to work our way sort of slowly down onto our backs. And this is where the opportunity to take an inversion is there. So whatever might be in your practice already, maybe a shoulder stand, plow, maybe a headstand. And actually, if you're sort of not super familiar with inversions in your practice, then if you've got a wall nearby, a nice one to take is legs up the wall. So if you are taking legs up the wall, then come in sort of from the side, bringing your hips close to the wall, and then you can rotate the body and bring the feet up. So this is a really nice inversion to take. Even if you have got something more advanced in your practice like headstand, you might feel that actually taking something like this feels better for you today. So if this feels like a nice inversion, then feel free to do so. If you've got things like a sofa nearby, you can do a kind of a half version of this if you want. And if you don't want to take an inversion today, then there'll be an option to come into bridge instead. So I'll talk you through bridge in case you're not taking your inversion. If you're in your inversion, then feel free to stay here, hang out for as long as feels good. So I'm just going to come out of my legs on the wall and grab a block. So I'm going to take a restorative bridge today, but you may want to take an active one. So if you're taking bridge, you're bringing your feet to hips width apart and you're having it so that you can just about touch the back of your ankles with your fingertips. As you inhale, pressing through the feet, lifting the hips, you can roll up onto the shoulders if you want, interlacing the fingers. So that's for an active bridge. And if you want to take the restorative one, you can pop a block either lengthways or sideways underneath the hips, lower back, and then once you've got it in the right place, you can just chill out and relax, feel supported in this position. So wherever you are, whichever variation you're taking of this or whatever inversion you're taking, allowing yourself a couple more breaths in whatever pose you're in. On your next inhale, if you're in bridge, removing any props coming up onto the toes and then lowering down one vertebrae at a time. And if you're coming out of your inversion, then coming out really mindfully, one vertebrae at a time, looking after your neck as you come down. And then finding your way onto your back and taking a little rock, a little windscreen wiper side to side with the legs. When they come over to the right hand side, allowing them to stay there. Maybe the left arm opens up, gaze over the left arm, coming into a little spinal twist. So really winding down from class now, maybe you allow your eyes to close. Inhaling, gaze to center, left arm to center, legs back to center. And then exhaling, legs come over to the left. Maybe you open up the right arm, gaze over the right arm. Getting a sense of the body winding down. Breathing into the openness and the shape that you've created in this spinal twist. Inhaling, head, arm and legs back to center. Taking a deep inhale through your nose, filling your body. And exhale through your mouth. Letting your body sink down into the mat, coming into Shavasana, making yourself really cozy in whatever position you'd like to be in. So maybe you like to stay with the knees bent, bringing the knees together, the feet a bit wider. Maybe you want to open out completely onto your back, or maybe you've got another position that you prefer to be in. Wherever you are, allowing your body to surrender and let go, the mind to surrender and let go. Taking this precious time at the end of class to completely release and to relax. Feeling openness and spaciousness across the front of your body. And as the back of your body sinks down deeper and deeper into the ground. Observing every point of contact that your body has with the ground right now. Allowing it to be heavy. Taking some time here in quiet, in stillness. Letting go in Shavasana. I really encourage you to spend a few more minutes in your Shavasana today. I hope you've enjoyed this fiery, dynamic flow, and I look forward to practicing together again soon. Namaste.